Ryan from the Middle Tennessee Regional Office, and he's going to share some information about a person who's been very successful in a semi-independent living situation, which is something that I think is so important for us to be featuring at this time. And actually, I'm not going to go too far into that right now because I'm going to share our Get Smarticle for today, which kind of gets into this topic just a little bit. So let me share my screen, and I'll bring this up. All right, I think I'm sharing. And let me get the slideshow mode. All right, so our Get Smarticle for today is, oh, went too far. Our Get Smarticle for today is barriers to independent living for individuals with disabilities and seniors. This came from the journal Behavior Analysis in Practice, which is a journal for behavior analysts, obviously, but I think this has a great application to what we're talking about today. With respect to independent living, the problem we're facing right now is that there is not, I don't think there's enough opportunity for people to be able to get services in the same way that we provided them over this course of years that we have done. You know, part of the reason for that is because we have an aging population. We were just commenting a moment ago about my interest in the show Wheel of Fortune, which indicates that I'm aging a little bit. I like that show, and so, you know, that indicates that me, and that, I think that show's becoming wildly popular now. I did hear that one of the producers died last week at the age of 92, and a lot of the audience wrote in, "Oh my goodness, so young," you know, when he died. But we do have an aging population. What that means is that there's a lot more competition out there for the limited resources that are available to serve people. And, you know, every agency out there that we're working with has encountered problems with staffing during this most recent period. Now, some of that's been contributed to by COVID, but some of it is part of a phenomenon that has been occurring for years, which is the aging of the population. And so as there are more senior citizens, there are more people competing for those limited resources, and it becomes difficult to provide services as we have in the past. Let me add on top of that, my own editorial comment, that our goal has always been to help people with disabilities be as independent as possible, right? We're not here to try to make them dependent on us and to have tons of people around them to provide services across the course of the day. We want them to be able to function as independently as they possibly can and as they wish to. You know, choice in living situation and daily life is diminished under the current system. So, you know, most people would not choose to be in a situation where they have to be overseen by a staff member across the course of the day. I don't think anybody, maybe sometimes we think we need that. Maybe we think we need a keeper, but nobody likes that. And then daily life, choices across the course of their daily lives are also diminished in the current system. And so independent and semi-independent living situations are possible solutions to this problem. And so that's why I'm so happy that we're talking about this today. The method in this particular study was a survey that was given to stakeholders for persons with disabilities and for senior citizens. The survey included a demographic portion. They also had 13 categories of barriers to independence that were rated, and then they did a Likert rating of the importance of each barrier on a scale from 1 to 4. And then they contrasted the needs of these two groups. And the results were as follows. One of the biggest concerns for people with disabilities was that they needed help with personal safety. Concerns were one of the biggest barriers. Assistance with household skills, assistance with medications was listed as being very important. For senior citizens, their needs were a little bit different. One was running or wandering away, mobility difficulties, memory loss, and disorientation. And so some of those things, it's interesting the difference in those. When you look at the things that people with disabilities have difficulty with, it's often things that can be helped, that could be, people could learn to do better with. Whereas with the senior citizens, it's more or less things that really you end up having to just live with. So a few of the points that we would want to take from this article. First of all, this is a message to behavior analysts in particular, but assessments and interventions should be based on promoting independence for the person. There should be a focus on self-help and safety skills for persons with IDD. And so to the extent that they're able to get better at those couple of things, then, the extent to which they're able to be more independent as they grow older. And then using technology to accommodate areas where independence may not be easily achieved. There's so many things through our enabling technology projects that we have across the state that can be very helpful in this regard. One of the things, it was mentioned about medication, needing assistance with medications on the previous slide. There are devices now that can dispense medications for people with ID and or with any disability, and basically allow them to not have to have somebody to administer those medications across the course of the day. And many people with disabilities have staff there for that specific purpose. So this is just another area with technology that I think even when people can't develop the skills or can't get fluent enough with the skills to be able to do it independently, that we can provide some mechanism for helping them be able to do that through the use of technology. So I just wanted to review that article real quick there, Adrian, as an entree into what you're going to be talking about today, because I think one of the areas that we don't think about this enough with is where people are having lots of conflicts with other people and may desire greater independence, but that resistance or that conflict that they're having is used to justify why they must have a more restrictive type of setting or one where there are more people around. And I don't want to paint anything with a broad brush, but we need more examples of just what has been able to be accomplished in this circumstance that you're going to talk about today, about a very nice young lady who has been able to show that type of independence and be fairly successful in a semi-independent living situation. So, Adrian, welcome to the Clinical Consultation Network. Glad you could be here today.
Thanks so much. Got one of these statements on the computer saying your computer's getting ready to restart.
Uh-oh.
Now, I hope hitting the snooze button would really let it snooze.
I hope so too. If you fall off, we will know why, but I hope that won't happen.
Well, I hope so. I'll be back either way.
So, Adrian, before you launch into your presentation and discussion here, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I don't know how long I've been with this department now, but I truly enjoy working, helping people. I think some of you know I've worked at the methadone clinic before and other drug treatment programs. Meharry Medical College at the Mental Health Center. So what I was hoping to do is come to the department, DIDD, and bring some of those same skills and knowledge. And it definitely seemed like it's a place where we got to focus a little bit more on mental health. I know that's hard for us to understand that a person with intellectual developmental disability might have mental health issues. I think in this case, we'll see where it's clear that some mental health components are there and how we can navigate around there.
Yeah. Adrian, what's your job with the regional office?
Well, to be quite frank, You know, I'm quite sure Dr. Harris would agree. Whatever they need me to do, you know, I
Keep
help the
cooking.
Katie. Yeah, I'm with the
Yeah.
Katie Beckett program now, and that's wonderful because we went now working with children when the things are just getting started. I'm doing, I'm an assessor with ECF and also have a small caseload. And any other issue that the department need help on, I'm ready to go. I just like to work. I don't like to take off. I was disappointed when we had all those holidays, but I took them.
Well, that's great. So now I had asked you a little bit beforehand about your interesting fact about yourself, and you said you were still working on that. But do you have an interesting fact that you can share with us?
Well, I'll be working on until my last day anyway. So, but I was thinking, I don't know if folks know I was in the Tennessee National Guard and the Army Reserve. Got honorable discharge from both, and it surely was a privilege to be in the National Guard here in Tennessee. I'm
Okay.
originally, yeah, I'm originally from D.C., Washington, D.C., so I'm a Tennessee National Guard person. So I thought that was always interesting. It's something I always want to cherish.
Yeah. Did you get to go on any interesting summer? We used to call them summer camps when I was in there, but
Yeah,
annual training. That's what it was the word I was
yeah,
trying to come up.
yeah. I went to some. Now, fortunate thing, I was commissioned. I was a commissioned officer. So I had a unit once I was down in Memphis, and we used to go to Fort Campbell. I didn't know they had woods in Fort Campbell, and that's where
Oh,
they took us way up there and stuck us in the woods for that whole time. So, and driving on the interstate 50 miles an hour while everybody passing you by is a challenge in and of itself. So I was up there a lot, and there are other times when I was with the Army Reserve. I was down in Mississippi. I was a personnel officer training down there. So I had some lucky opportunities. I didn't get to go to Iraq. They called me a couple of times, but they didn't need me at the time, so I was really proud of that.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. So, well, thank you for sharing that. So, you've got a story you want to share with us today. I'm going to turn it over to you a little bit here, and then probably pipe in with some dumb questions periodically. But appreciate you so much being here and presenting this for us today.
Well, I appreciate your time. And Michelle, thanks so much for helping me with this. Um, this presentation I call The Long Road Home. And it's just a basic case review. And I like what Dr. Davis presented on the front end because there's just certain struggles I have, and I have to try to figure out how to keep it in check. And I would say this presentation is just what it said, The Long Road Home. How do you help an individual that want to go home get home within our department and within the waiver? We can go to the next slide. Um, Now, during the presentation, what I was hoping we'll do, because I like some interaction and I like some feedback, I was thinking if you see any examples of behavior techniques or concepts, mental health techniques or concept, person-centered, case management, that you put it in the chat box, because what I was thinking is if different people see different things and we have examples of it and it's all in the chat box, we maybe can share more information because I think every day we all are using these techniques we don't know we are. Um, it's just put the information out there so we're all involved in this presentation. I'm going to the next slide for a minute. Now, some examples. The reason I put this on here because some of these things I learned in school, so I wanted to let you know I learned it in school. For example, differential reinforcement incompatible behavior. I knew about the DRI, DRA, DRO, but people that use these things all the time, I might be using it. I maybe did here. Be nice you pointed out. Response calls, I remember some time ago. Positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. I think a lot of times we use negative reinforcement in ways we didn't intend, but it can do some harm sometimes. And sometimes we got to help our colleagues, stakeholders realize that there are other approaches. If you see some example cognitive behavior type, because you do still process with people. That's what I did here in order to achieve the goals we're trying to achieve. Next slide, please. Now, this individual past history, because what I heard I never met the person before I started working with her, but I heard about her through her history. Through with Department of Children's Services. This is what I learned after working with her for a while. And with that being said, if you're already in the system some kind of way, so a lot of things are happening in your life. She also was homeless. She lived at the mission. She was adopted as a child. She always had a verbal release. And when I say a verbal release, it could be bad words, yelling, and all type of things, but just expressing herself, communicating in a way that was very difficult for others to deal with. Next slide. Now, additional challenges, and this I learned later too. I believe these things, but you need the documentation. You have been diagnosed with anxiety disorders, with like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and you can see symptoms of it with her interaction. They also have diagnosed her in the past with bipolar. And so I already thought she had poor coping skills. We all know that. But she also had the fight or flight syndrome. We all have it, but somehow or another, people with intellectual disability, it seems different when they have it. And we definitely want to say everything is a behavior. And it is basically a response, but what's triggering it? What is causing these things? Next slide.
Hey, Adrian, just a quick
Yes.
question on the post-traumatic stress disorder
Yes.
aspect of that. And I want to ask you to go into great detail here, but was this from some childhood abuse that she had experienced?
My understanding it is from childhood, and she been in the system, she said, since about 5 years old. So that means a lot of things occurred before 5.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for that.
Yes. Next slide. Okay, she's been in the waiver since 2008. And she basically came in the way because she was coming out of DCS. We had that process, that system. She has received services up to supportive living. Look at that. Supportive living 4142. So we're saying at a high level, just the kind of support the person needs. And I want you to keep that in mind because where we are now. I put down therapeutic respite. We call it behavior respite. I just have a problem with that term because I think it's a conditioned stimulus to everybody else but the individual. And we look at a person when they come, bringing nothing but baggage of issues. I'd rather, it's almost like a commercial, but it's just my thought. I'd rather see if we have something like that. This is where we now can be as clinical as we can possibly be. We should be able to get all the data, and information on a person. If they have a behavior support plan, it should be implemented cross shift so we can see if it works, doesn't work. We should have a real good idea where to go when the person leaves. That means we started working on what they need from day one. But implementing those plans correctly, supporting the person, see if talk therapy, all that should happen here. So I'd rather call it therapeutic respite. That's what I think we're also trying to. Yes.
That fits right in with the direction that we're heading with this because we've pretty much eliminated use of the term behavior respite. And we're working very hard right now to transform these programs into therapeutic resource centers. So you're right on target, I think, with what you're bringing up there.
I appreciate you saying that. Also, of course, the ISC, they're always involved. But keep in mind now, what I was thinking about, even with residential placement, that's a lot of funds being applied to support an individual. ISCs over time, it's just a lot of funds. And since 2008, that's a lot. Okay, we can go to the next slide, please. So question, what do you do if the person say what they want? And it's different from what we think or what we have. Because usually when a person say what we want, then we go to our shopping list called the waiver and see if anything fit in there. But what do you do if what they want is not available? Do we just force them into what we have and leave it there or what? And what can you do to help? Well, this help part is the part I think about. Next slide, please. Main thing is, which way do you go? And that's what I usually think about. Do you think about the individual? Do you think about the waiver? You think about the agencies? Which road do you go down? Who do you support? But keep in mind, your stakeholders, you got to figure out how to support them. The individual, you got to figure out how to support that person. If it's people in their lives, you got to figure out how to support all of them. So that's almost like me when I was getting ready to get started. Which way do I go? I kind of knew which way I was going. I was going to go with the individual, but I had to figure out how to not create problems among the other people. So it's just something you think about. Next slide, please. This person wanted to live in Pulaski. And at the time, I think I was involved when she was in Nashville. And she wanted to be close to family. She always, from what I heard, said, I want to go back to Pulaski. And some of the
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes,
Okay.
hello.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Hello?
pretty good, pretty good. I guess I had my mic accidentally turned off. Sorry about that.
Well, we have some company.
Jason, were you trying to enter a comment there, or we maybe accidentally had your mic on?
Well, they might realize. Somebody might text me.
And I just want to point out one thing, Adrian. You talked to this person and got their complete permission to share all this information that you're sharing today. So
Yes.
I just wanted people to be well aware of that.
Thanks so much. Yes, I even saw the person in yesterday, and it's got all the information, and they wanted the story to be told. I still didn't have anything with the person's name in there now, but I have permission even to use their name. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you, Davis, Dr. Davis. Now, one of the main things I usually try to do is find out and understand to be eligible for this department, you have to have intellectual developmental disability. I like to look for abilities. What can the person do? I mean, and so I was really excited about this person. So I do want to know how they communicate. And we already know about things people do that none of us care for, but communication is communication. We might have to redirect sometime. But what I learned about this person, they can read, they can write, they email, text, use telephone, prepare meals. I mean, like, the email was something else. And we just don't think about that. And this person had learned how to use emails to the point that it almost became therapeutic. By that, I'm talking about Facebook. So when she had concerns, she went to Facebook. Next slide, please. So playing on the front end, we all know Circle Support, COS, waiver services, IFC, and provide. This is how we usually start everything in my mind. This is it. This is the plan. We all get together. We all know to do a Circle Support. I never even heard of Circle Support till I came to this department. But everybody do have groups of people to get together and talk. And we're on our way. Next slide, please. So provider agency, when we heard what the person wants, main thing, you got to get a person moving, especially if they're going to come out of respite, you got to go somewhere. So what we learned even back in June, they currently didn't have staff available, but they were open to hiring somebody pending them passing the hiring requirements. You can go to the next slide. So that's nice to hear. Also, and now these are actual email comments. It ain't Adrian creating a thought. I thought I'd just take actual emails and try to express what they were expressing at the same time. Other people say we'll not be able to support the person in Pulaski. So that was clear. There's nothing we can do for that person in Pulaski. Other things I heard, she's adamant she doesn't want a PA and she want to sign out. They don't give you much assault on your mom and that road we was on. They don't give you much. We already know where you can't go. Next slide, please. So then for me, it's like go back, what's working, what's not. So my thing was, first one go to Pulaski, that's where Adrian's going. So we need to find her a place in Pulaski. I already knew their apartments and they got all kind of options. Now it may not be in the waiver, or this one wasn't. And then identify supports. How can we achieve the goal? Because one thing about this person, she have already demonstrated, the more you say no, the more she gonna go the other way. So whatever you came up with, she was going to leave it. But I just thought when a person say what they want, we go and create it. Next slide, please. So one of the main things I thought, what the waiver could provide as a personal assistant. Now, I already was working on that, but I'm gonna tell you, first time I worked on it, I had a person, things changed. They moved someone in their house they had to take care of, so that was gone. Then I had another person. Things went another way on that. It wasn't like I just found somebody and that's it. So I had to come up with another plan. Each time you come up with a different plan, things just happen. Those plans we talk about. Next slide, please. The plan I came up with, one, we found an apartment and it became available. The person was on the waiting list. And the person that we're working with and trying to help had to go and interview for it, not a state employee or worker anywhere. They had to sell themselves. And the family went with them. So it was the individual and the family. Now they did, after they did the interview, is contact me and asked me, could I talk to the department manager, and hoping that push, I could see that. I could see that support. And I did talk to the department manager and let her know that this person have a lot of support if you can help. They gave me a tentative approval on that day. Yes, we think we can. We believe in giving people chances. Because the person has something on their record that occurred when they was in residential placement. That's why we gotta be careful sometimes when people in the agencies and we call them the police, because if you end up with a record, now we got a problem. If we can try to work those things out without involving law enforcement, that's what we like to do. So the person had that, but they said they would give them a second chance. So we were happy. Look at that nice apartment on there I have. Next slide, please. Now, what we did, person moved in on June the 4th. See that basket there? Couldn't get the bed in it, but we had to get a bed. Now, at the time, the focus was to save some money to get a conservator in place for the person. And I understand the intent of the conservatorship, but this person, well, anyway, I'll come back to that some other day. The money we had, because it costs to get a conservator. I did find a lawyer that was going to take payments, but we needed some money to get a bed and other items. And that's what we used the money for. My understanding, I heard this, I don't know. The suggestion was get a conservator in case the person say they want to sign out, you got the conservator. I just think that people, if you're doing the right thing, they'll work with you. And that's what happened in this case. But we needed the funds to get her started in her apartment.
Well,
yes.
let me ask you a quick question or make a quick comment here about that, because, you know, the real reason that you get a conservator is because the person doesn't have the capacity to consent. And from what you have described here, this person really did have the capacity to consent. She had the capacity to consider alternatives and to make a choice on her own. Now, in this case, she made choices right down the line that we like. Sometimes people might be competent to make their own decisions and not make all the decisions we like, but those are not reasons to go for a conservatorship. It really is because the person doesn't have the capacity, the rationality, the ability to consider options to make a decision. It sounds clearly like, I mean, if I'm understanding you correctly, she clearly had that capacity to do that.
Yeah, and I appreciate everything you're saying, Dr. Davis. It's the way I felt. You know, many times you're out there alone and you be thinking things may not be in line with the way people have always done things. But I thought there was no indication in my mind, conservatorship, and even if you got conservatorship, the person's still going to do what they want to do. So that intent wasn't as healthy. But this person here, and I don't know, we used the funds to get her what she needed to move in her apartment.
If having different ideas had been a criterion for getting a conservator, then I can assure you I would have had a conservator by now. So, it's clearly not a criterion for needing a conservator. So thank you so much for that.
The other thing is, now here was one of the other challenges, because when we moved fast on this, because she saw her apartment, they say you hear the keys, like getting a new car. She wanted to move in. And that's what we did. Now the bed was taken care of, grocery, you know, the basic support needs that you need to get started. She wanted a TV. She went to the Walmart. They went to Walmart in Pulaski, and the TV they want wasn't there, 32-inch. They called me and I say, look, it's nothing but a bunch of Walmarts up here. I'll get one up here and bring it down there because I want it in her place and whatever she needs. Now I put at the bottom there, converter box, because TV time has changed. And we couldn't figure out how to get no stations channel. And I did have an old converter box. And can you see all three of us standing around after we plugged up the TV, me trying to get a channel on a converter box and moving the antenna around. I luckily got a channel from I don't know where. We didn't care what it was. It was something talking to her and she could look at. And once again, a celebration happened. So that's what we did initially when she first moved in, like most of us when we first went to school and didn't have anything. Next slide, please. Now, the next thing is, you know how we say, let's decorate the person's home. So we thought about getting some pictures for the apartment. Now, most of the time, all of us in this field, we already have an idea what a nice apartment would look like. One of the other stories I ain't talk about, Dr. Davis, I'll tell y'all next time, is when I came to school, I was broke, so I don't know what you put in an apartment. So I went at it the same way. So next slide, please. What we did with our pictures. We talked about it, us three. It was her mom, her, and myself. She got some pictures next time I came, and she had pictures on the wall of a lady with her baby. Now she came up with that. Now watch this. I said, who is that lady? She said, that's me. And I'm like, you know, y'all talk about game shows, somebody like they won something. I'm like, I'm amazed. It was her. I was like, I said, that's you? She was there with her newborn baby. Now, the individual telling us what's important to her. Pictures of her life. It wasn't Adrian's pictures. And there were quite a few pictures of her son getting older. And each time I went back, I went there at least once a month, there were more pictures. The next time was pictures of her and a lady. She was in her cap and gown. And I said, who's that lady? It was one of her teachers. It's telling a story. Those were wonderful pictures of her life, things that meant something to her. These days, you go looking for pictures, they got words and frames. The pictures ain't even pictures no more. But her pictures were awesome. And this is the same individual that we were trying, well, anyway, it's just unbelievable when you work with a person and they do the things and express themselves. And those wonderful pictures, I saw them again yesterday, and there are more pictures. Next slide, please. Now, my thing was, I had to have another circle support because now we got an agency we're working with. We have an IC also. And you can see how I put this creative little comment there. We have to also make sure we maintain open line of communication. How do we support our stakeholders? Because this is an adjustment for them now. This whole approach, the way we're going about things, because a lot of people didn't believe that we can get a place, an apartment, and have the person live there. So I had to recognize their stress level too, and also provide support. Now this will go for all of us. We got to know how to support those individuals too, not just the individual that's in the waiver, but everybody that's trying to support, especially when you're trying to move to another level. Because they may not know how to go to this level, so we even had to kind of bring them along the way or push them a little bit to help them believe in what we're doing. Next slide, please. Now, these are actual concerns that were expressed to me. Now, I appreciate them expressing it to me, communicating with me. That means we have a working relationship, but that was critical. So what you see here is just what was said to me. Knowing her history and hearing that she does not want the service is a big concern. And these stakeholders, they're telling you already, okay, got an issue here. And all I could do is respond, and this is my actual response. Her verbal request to me, and her emails indicate she wants services. Those great emails, when I told you the skill sets that person had, I asked the person to start to tell me what she wants. and it's in writing now. It's not me sitting around and trying to figure it out. Next slide, please.
Adrian, I assume the service she didn't want was the service as usual, the 4-1 or the 4-2, you know, those types of residential services. She didn't want services. She just didn't want that full enchilada.
All of that. She did.
Yeah.
Yep, she didn't want that. And she didn't want other components that go with that.
Right.
And she wanted to be her own person. And no 24-hour security. But anyway, next. Once again, our stakeholders say, my biggest concern, that's beautiful, a person can say that and let you know they have that concern. It's not the individuals, these are stakeholders. Is that if she get evicted from her apartment and had no place to go, DID would expect us to find her a home. And my response basically was, if there's an emergency and she get evicted, I say, if it is an emergency now, you get evicted. I mean, just like anybody else. My understanding with this COVID, bunch of folks could have been evicted and the government had to say, don't evict nobody now. People have lost, so eviction is a way of life. I'm sure the regional office will look at all the resources. You know, I have to be really diplomatic. That's true. The regional office will. They'll pull the whole exec team together. And then they'll pull in downtown too. They'll pull in everybody. So I'm trying to let the person know, I hear you. We're not going to expect you alone to do anything. I mean, we got to go to work. Next slide, please. Now, I would say, once again, these are more concerns. We understand the anxiety. Now, the anxiety diagnosis I mentioned for the individual, but guess what? Agencies have it too. And we got to write a prescription for them. But they have in there, however, when her intensive history of behaviors, oh my goodness. So we unfortunately cannot be expected to provide anything other than PA service. And then I said, according to her email, she only asking for PA service. So I'm fine with that. So we okay with that. So you want to reassure them. Once again, in the chat room, if you see some good therapy techniques going on here, please put it in the chat, because that's a lot of conversation, communication going on. But that's how we have to support everybody. Next slide, please. Now, I also summarized and said my thoughts are, now this is me trying to shape attitudes, mindsets, and everything. I understand the history, but I don't focus on that. History is what it is. But I said my thoughts are, she's a person in the waiver that deserves our unconditional support. Now, before we say person-centered, you know, we say client-centered with Carl Rogers. So unconditional positive regard is in there somewhere. So I try to put that word in there, unconditional. She had a history before the waiver where she needed help from the state of Tennessee. This person, as a child, was getting different types of services. We got to recognize there's a lot of things that have occurred in her life as a child before she even came to us. And that's rough. Children in services, I mean, some real bad things have occurred in their life. But I say, I believe there are mental health issues. I didn't know, I ain't had no paperwork. It's just me believing. PTSD, depression, anxiety issues, and things of that. The thing I wanted to emphasize, she's a mother. You know, I understand the waiver, but she's a mother. She's a mother. That's all I wanted to get across. And she have done everything she could to get back home. That's what she was doing. She letting people, I don't know if she verbalized it that way or what. She wanted to get back to Pulaski, to be around her son and be around her natural supports, people that care about her. To me, you know, that's what we have to do. But that would me trying to let the stakeholders know, I understand how you feel, but this is a person here. Next slide, please. Now, all this is still some of the same thing. I let them know I had the person tell me who she wanted. It's no more us trying to find a PA and that kind of thing. So she told me 2 people. Now, one of them didn't get hired because she didn't have a driver's license. That's the policy of the agency, even though I had a problem with that too. In my mind, I'm like, everybody doing Uber, Lyft, and everything else, they got all the kind of special transportation. Why would that hold up anything? Matter of fact, that would have been a good teachable moment. That person might be the best to show a person how to get around that don't drive, as long as they get to work. So I had to leave that one alone. So that person didn't make it. Then this other person that knew the person, she talked to me. She got little cold feet because she know when the person have a verbal release, she ain't want to deal with that. I can understand that too. You can't pressure people. So then my last thing was, I'm gonna just try and make this quick. The person that was close to her, I decided to talk to that person about being their PA. Because I thought the person would work with that person. Because to me, PAs, you gotta try to match this stuff. And that's what I was trying to work. You gotta match it. You can't just put people, I hear what people saying, we ain't got nobody, good. Because some of them are not people that need to work with people. We want to get the right person. It doesn't matter to me, they don't have bodies. We want the right body, the right fit, people that want to be with someone, work with them, and all that. So it is what it is. So, but I'm gonna find the right one. I think we did, and it was close by. Next slide, please. And once again, I'm just saying it gotta be a good fit. So when that other PA told me she had problems, I already knew this is not the right fit. I ain't just looking for a PA. It got to be the right fit. Because when she have a bad day, I don't want people walking out and all that and not showing up. And that's sometimes the problem people get too with these PAs. People don't show up to work. I mean, so is that a good fit? I don't think so. Next slide, please. PA services started on the 22nd of November. I got her former adopted mom to be her PA because this person will work unconditionally. The person know the person. I seen her process with the person when there were bad days. And it's just 15 hours a week. Now look at what we're doing here. Only 15 hours a week compared to level 4 back then, residential, 15 hours a week, even though we're getting a lot more. But it just work. And that's what sometimes we got to figure out how to put these pieces together. Next slide, please.
Adrian, let me double check on the timeline, make sure I understand. Had she already been living semi-independently before this? And then
That's right.
The day services started in November.
Yeah, she moved into the apartment on 6/4.
Right.
Now, this PA service, basically the person still been helping out, just like I go down there. Really the way I was going to see her. Technically, if it's the ISC, if they were the one visiting, it was still there. But it was just so we can maintain. Yes, when this started, but keep in mind, we was trying to get a PA since that time, since June, even before she moved in. Things happened, but we still supported the person. We wasn't gonna let a PA or any other part of waiver service hold this process up. We wasn't waiting on that. Yeah, but we've been looking, I was looking for a PA before she moved in there. Things just fall through. Next slide, please. Also now, my thing is the person has a problem sometimes communicating. So I gave her a book, and the book had different suggestions on what you can do different, how you can verbalize your feelings in a different way. And I asked her to read it because you got to teach some of these new behaviors or new thought process or new ways of responding. Everybody else got some self-help. I believe this would have been a nice self-help for her. And I asked her to read it. It was simple read. But you're now trying to focus on those positive things, what we would like to see. Next slide, please. Her response is, that's her email. She's saying, I really want you up. Because see, when I gave her the book, I said, guess what? You can write your own book too. Give them a vision, give them something to hope for besides what we usually talk about. And I said, basically, all the things you've experienced in life, this book should be meaningful for other people that's going through the same thing. But look, this is what she's sending back to me in email. You know, I really want this book about me and helping people. So she was asking about willing to help. I said, I will be there for you on that. But having the person thinking about something different. Next slide, please. Now, this is in their own words, because we always processing. She says she always have a plan B, and she always have a backup plan. I'm getting one of them calls again as usual. Now, next one. She sent me an email on the 19th and said things are still going well. So just letting me know. This is the same person that sounds like I don't know what to other people. But this is the way she's communicating. She sounds healthy to me. It don't sound like what I heard about the history. Next slide, please. This is her again, her own words. These are emails. I'm gonna keep moving forward, you know, because I want to be a good mother. This is what we're looking for. You know what? I was thinking if we can graduate everybody we work with within the waiver and they graduate to this level and we graduate out of services and all that kind of stuff, and this is our outcome, we got something for 60 minutes in the state of Tennessee. Next slide, please. This is the last one. This is her email. I'm very proud of myself. And keep in mind where we started. That's it for the presentation.
Oh, yeah, and of course, you shared it on just a show, a medium just as great as 60 Minutes here today on the Clinical Consultation Network, Adrian. So we appreciate you doing that. Wow, what a story, though. I mean, this is somebody who, you know, I don't think anybody gave a shot at being able to live semi-independently, and yet that was exactly what was needed in this circumstance to give her a life worth living in her estimation. And so, wow, kudos. We did have a few comments about some different things here in the chat. Michelle, you want to review any of those things that were put up in chat regarding Adrian's presentation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we identified some person-centered techniques. So the important two and important fours, also the what's working, not working. Case management techniques were pointed out. Mental health technique of empathy and active listening. Also reframing mental health technique. One person just commented, it's amazing what can happen when you actively listen to a person and respect them as an individual. Another person noted it's good to use the matching tools from person-centered planning, and just also commented the email threads are a great way of sharing this experience.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody in department, Dr. Davis, Michelle, for just letting me talk about something exciting to me. And for the person, she's just as happy as can be, and I think she will continue to grow.
Adrian, one question I have is, so prior to going into this situation for her, did she have periods where, you know, even though she was in these other services, I know that she had periods of absence from that. Maybe she had even been, you said she was homeless for a period. And of course, that's not a great situation for somebody. But were you able to observe things when she was outside of those services that helped you have confidence that she was going to be able to do well in this situation? So in other words, times where she had been out of services and had been able to take care of herself.
I think she's always been capable. I honestly believe my approach is just different. I haven't had issues at all. I did have one. One time she did email me early on. I don't want any services. She sent me emails and I don't want any more services. I responded back, okay, thanks. Because I wasn't going to get into a whole lot of dialogue. Within about an hour and a half, she emailed me back and said, Adrian, I do want services. I didn't respond right then because I didn't want to reinforce this email stuff. But she emailed me again about 30 minutes, said, Adrian, I don't know if you got my email, but I really want to stay in the way. I thought it was important to respond.
Why do you think in that circumstance? I'm just curious as to your interpretation of why she reacted the way she did to that.
She got upset with someone she worked with that's within the waiver, and that's the way she responded. The same people that know her history, that's the history they have. So she got upset with them. Then that's when she gave me the feedback. Because I got also email from people that work with her said the same thing. I wasn't going to just feed into that at all. I understand what she's saying, and I let her know, okay, I hear you. And from that moment on, we have never had any, and just haven't been it. She did ask for the service about an hour and a half later, and we've been flying since.
Well, I'll just point out, you accepted her answer to that. And that was a validation of her answer to that. And what you did by doing that was give her the space to think about the situation and to come up with, you know, what we would probably all think is a wiser decision on her part. But if we're impatient with that and we start opposing that statement that she makes about her sincere desire, we basically escalate the situation and probably cause her to become more firm in her position that she doesn't want to.
Yes.
So I just think that demonstrates exactly the type of interactions that we want to be having with people with disabilities and in supporting them and helping them. So is there anything else, Michelle, from the chat box or anything else out there? Anybody have any questions for Adrian?
I don't have a question. I just want to comment. Inspiring as always, Adrian, and I love your approach.
I appreciate the kind words. Thanks so much.
Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Clinical Consultation Network and sharing this. I think this has been great, and I hope, Adrian, you will do this again. You know, we give a special reward to people who come on here 5 times and do presentations. You'll get a special recognition when you do that. So the 5 Timers Club. So I hope you will come back and tell us about more of these types of stories. Sure
will. Thanks so much.
And thank all of you for being here on the Clinical Consultation Network. We do this every Tuesday at 12:30, so join us again next week. We'll see you then.